You guys showed up for a Jacko showcase, but are you ready for a Jacko Bad Cat Armin showcase? Hey everyone, it's Mace1370. Today we're going to do a showcase for the new limited hero Jacko. Before we get into it though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please see the video description below for a link to my Discord where you can find all of my unit stats. So Jacko is our new limited 5-star hero from the Guilty Gear collab, and she's a lot of fun to play with. I wouldn't say she's as busted as Rimuru or some of our previous limited heroes. She seems pretty well balanced, honestly. She can kind of fit in some niche teams and she performs well there, but she's difficult to just universally pick in all situations, right, in Excel. So we can go over her kit really quickly. Her skill 3 is a single target attack, gives her attack up, penetrates defense, and does a ton of damage when the target has a debuff. If you kill someone with her skill 3, it gives her an extra turn. And that's a really integral part of her kit because it kind of synergizes all together and fits into, a big combo chain basically. So you kill someone with a skill 3 and then you can S1. S1 has a chance to stun, and then after she attacks, if the target has a debuff, which could include the stun that she can put on them with her skill 1, she gets a second attack called Dust Attack. This is kind of like Rem's secondary ability. Hers does damage to them and then gives her stealth. And this is really important because you want to build her with a lot of damage, and stealth is her survivability mechanic, right? So you build her with a lot of damage so you can blow something up with skill 3, and then you combo into the skill 1 into her Dust Attack. Her passive ability gives a buff called the Chain of Chiron to the back unit. This is essentially Abyssal Crown. I think the chance to stun is a little bit less, but it's essentially just Abyssal Crown. This is really nice because it synergizes with the rest of her kit. You can put an AoE hero or an AoE, buff stripping hero in the back row to give them this buff. That'll put stuns and debuffs, on the enemy team that will enable her extra damage, which will enable her, stuns and her Dust Attack, etc. So all kind of fits together. Her kit all kind of works together well. It feels like it synergizes. So, if you're using her in a situation where she's going to be good, it feels really nice because her kit kind of all works together. So I'm using her artifact here, and this just gives 10% effectiveness to your whole team, which is nice because, the whole team is going to revolve around debuffs when you use her. And then the rest of this artifact essentially just gives her a damage buff when the enemy has a debuff, and it's a single attack, right? But her whole kit is single attacks, and this is more damage than Portrait, so this is kind of the highest damage artifact that you can put on her, essentially. I think it's a pretty good choice for her. If you don't have this artifact, you could run Portrait or some other damage artifact. You could consider Merciless Glutton, I think would be a pretty good choice, because that would give CR boosting. And the last thing I did forget to mention, speaking of CR boosting, is when she attacks, or after an ally attacks when the target is stunned, you get a 20% CR boost, which is really nice. So here are her stats. I wanted her around 240 speed. I think faster could be better, but I have a very hard time getting the DPS I want above this speed, so this is as fast as I could get her. Pen set is very nice for her because she only has single target attacks, so if you have really nice pen set pieces, you can use those. Of course, if you have crit set instead, that's perfectly fine. You can still get good damage on her with crit set. And from there, I basically just put as much mean crit damage on her as I possibly could. So we can look at her gear here. It's all pretty high gear score. I think she's around 430 gear score. So these pieces are slightly above 70 gear score on average, just to give you an idea of, the quality of gear you need to hit these stats. Let's take a look at a couple games, and of course we'll do the game with Bad Cat Armin first. For these games, I'm going to pre-ban Designer a little bit. She completely interrupts my strategy, since I want to take a debuffer like Peyra or Conquer Lilius first to enable Jacko. Designer Lilibit would trigger, cleanse, cut, reset Jacko. It would just be a complete disaster, so she has to go. We have the Peyra here, so it goes to the enemy, who is pre-ban Mediator Cowrick. They take Violet and Huayong, which I'm very happy about. These are two relatively slow bruisers. Huayong could be built a little fast, but in general, not being speed contested in this spot. I'm going to take Jacko here, and then I'm also going to take Bad Cat Armin because I think it would be a really fun combo to run. I don't think it's really good, but it's, this was towards the end of my recording session. I already had a few good games with Jacko, and I've been really wanting to try this combination since you can give Chains of Chiron to Bad Cat Armin and really maximize her stuns. I run her on Champions Trophy, and her skill 1 is AoE, right? So every time you AoE, you're hitting all 4 units, and you have a chance to stun them with Champion's Trophy or Chains of Chiron, so lots of stuns potentially, right, with this combination. And we have Para to remove immunity, so I think we're in a decent spot here to execute this combo. Another reason why I like Jacko in this slot is both Violet and Hwyong are single target, so if I can score a kill and put Jacko into stealth, then it's really going to let her solo carry, right? Since the enemy Hwyong and Violet only have single target attacks and they're not going to be able to reach Jacko. Once she gets into stealth, you'd be surprised, it's pretty easy to keep her in stealth the entire game. When I was looking at her kit initially, I wasn't really sure how effective that was going to be, but she puts debuffs out, she puts Chains of Chiron on your team, or on one of your teammates so they can debuff, and it's fairly easy to chain, you know, her attacks into stun targets and keep her in stealth for the rest of the game once you get there. But she is very dependent on that opening combo, and if you don't execute that correctly and she doesn't get a kill, then you're probably dead because she's a sitting duck. So the enemy here takes Ran and Summertime Assyria. This is kind of a bummer because now they have a speed contester. And they also have Summertime Assyria, who I kind of wanted to take. So I'm going to take Fire Cowrick, he's fast. And honestly, I should have just taken Conquer Lilius here. I don't know why I didn't. I was like, oh, I need to take fast units. So I'm going to take him, he's like 270. And I'm just going to ban the Ran. And even if they pick something like Acid, it's not going to matter because they can only kill one thing and I should be fine. And then I take ML Charles because he seems like a lot of fun. So my game plan here is to ban the Ran and hope that they don't pick anything relevant, and then they take Conqueror Lilius, and it was kind of awkward because I was like, oh, I could have just taken that and then banned the Ran, and then the opponent would have been pretty screwed. I guess they could have taken Politis last, which would have been annoying. I think it would have been fine. Either way, we banned the Ran here. Conqueror Lilius is an annoyance, but to be honest, I think we're in a pretty decent spot since she can only lock down one unit, and we have 2 units that are speed tuned above the rest of his team, probably, right? We have Charles and we have Cowrick. And it does look to be the case that most of our, or half of our team is outspeeding his, so he can put attack down, but that shouldn't matter. Charles will be able to attack up if he gets the turn at least. And then, yeah, so he can provoke. Okay, so that pushes back Cowrick. I think he should have gone on Charles, honestly, because this is going to CR boost our team. And we're also going to put up attack buff, and that's going to counteract his attack down and essentially nullify much of Conquer Lilius' early turn. Alright, so we don't have any debuffs on the enemy team. This is kind of bad. So again, Conquer Lilius would have just been better than ML Charles, right? So we can go on Summertime Assyria, probably. She's the squishiest, and hopefully we get a kill here. So this is without a debuff. With the debuff, this does a ton of damage. It's kind of like Rylet damage, but you can see that was about 10k, and that was with Vigor on her. So pretty decent, and we were essentially without attack buff, right, because of the attack down. And then I can Soul Burn to get that stun into the enemy Hwyong, who did not have immunity. And that'll put us into stealth. So now we can skill 3 with Bad Cat Armin. I debated about skill 1ing here, but I don't want to push the Violet up above my Charles, so I'm just going to skill 1. We'll put some damage onto the enemy Lilius. And I guess this will give, you know, a barrier to Jacko too. Another incredible piece of synergy between Bad Cat Armin and Jacko is the barriers, right? To help her stay in stealth. A true power duo. And I don't know if you noticed, but Chains of Chiron or the Champion Trophy, something stunned ML Lilius there. So that's one stun. He's going to go into our Cowrick, but we have the barrier and he misses, and we're in that new Frenzy mechanic where green units do reduced damage to fire units. So Violet is much less of a threat than he used to be. Thank goodness. This hero is toxic. I can Soul Burn again and just completely control the Hwyong, since we're, I think, faster. Get a bunch of damage. Stay in stealth. We can skill 2 with Cowrick here and delete the Lilius. Now we can skill 1 with Bad Cat Armin. We still have Chains of Chiron. And we stun the Violet. Now we can go in with Charles and we land the hit. So that'll be pretty much game, right? Because he's stunned. And here comes Cowrick. Yep, that's game. For this game I actually pre-banned Peyra. This was another way I was experimenting drafting Jacko. My thought was when I'm first pick I can pre-ban Peyra and take Conquer Lilius, and this gives me kind of the only speed lead since a lot of people have ungeared their Ran. And this player pre-banned the Ran, right? So Conquer Lilius is the only one available. This strategy can work, however, Designer Lilibet is a huge problem as I mentioned earlier, and because of that, you can't take Jacko into kind of the 4-5 slot here. And since I was trying to force her, it was causing a lot of problems. The enemy responds to Conquer Lilius with Fallen Cecilia and Emilia. I think Politis is a good response to this for multiple reasons. It's a lot of insurance against Emilia. If Emilia somehow gets the first turn, then she can't really do much because of Politis, right? It would trigger the passive and buff strip, potentially stun depending on your artifact, etc. And then also, because you have buff block on the skill 3, it's good against Fallen Cecilia, so you can prevent her from putting up those barriers on her teammates. I think a lot of value here. My Politis is also carrying Book, which could enable a soul burn from Conquer Lilius or somebody else on my team, so a lot of value overall. I was debating about taking Jacko here, but as I said, because we haven't pre-banned Designer Lilibet, we can't take her this early, so I take Rimuru instead. I think Rimuru is a pretty decent pick here. He's, still a very flexible early pick, and despite the fact that AOL is on the table, we've taken the Politis, and I think that actually makes it a little bit safer, because Politis counters a lot of what AOL does, and can make it less optimal for them to pick her. They take Lionheart's Sirmia, I suppose in response to my Lilius and the Politis, so I think a pretty decent pick there. And then they take Huayong, so they've kind of taken 2 medium to slow speed bruisers along with their Emilia. But I think we have the Emilia checked because we have both Lilius to take the first turn and we have Politis, right? So we've, I think, fairly established, the fact that we're going to be driving the draft here. We can take Jacko and then Ida. Ida was the unit I was trying to combo in this situation with Jacko. You can boost her up with Conquer Lilius, and then you put her in the back to give her the Chains of Chiron, and because you're soul burning basically 2 AoE attacks in a row, there's a really good chance you stun most of the enemy team. So they take Rem last. Rem is a little annoying, but I think the fact that we have Jacko here is kind of nice. It means we have a very high chance to just stun the Rem, and then she's not going to dual attack us very much. Or counterattack, I should say. So we put Ida in the back. And we can freely skill 3 with Lilius now, since the enemy does not have Politis. Another reason to take her early is so that the enemy just can't take her. I feel like Politis' stocks have just been going up and up and up. She's a very strong hero. And now in this current Frenzy change with Soul Weavers getting a bunch of buffs, Politis is great against Soul Weavers. I feel like, for an RGB, she is essentially an ML5. Okay, so we get to skill 3 with Lilius here. This will boost Ida.
I'll make you taste despair.
We can push back Huayong. I think that's probably the best pushback target.
Are you sure?
Although I don't think it'll matter too much. We can soul burn the Ida skill 2. This will give us skill null in case Rem counters, but Rem gets stunned thanks to the Chains of Chiron. And now we can skill 3. And I think this is one of the things I like about Jacko the most with these chains. When you do land the stun on Rem, it just feels like the game is instantly won, because you can just keep AoEing into them and Rem won't counter you. So the enemy has a bunch of debuffs. Sirmia is debuffed with the attack down right from Lilius, so we can go into her with Jacko. Big damage, 23k. The enemy does not have, an Aureus effect, so we're going to hit really hard there. We can go into Rem and just delete her. We did hit, but I don't know, would that have killed on a miss? It might have. And that's game. This next game is interesting. This time, both of us pre-ban Designer Lilibet. I take Conquer Lilius first. I think she's a really strong pick as a first pick, and honestly has been, throughout the previous season. That part has not changed, despite the Frenzy changes. So the enemy responds with Peyra and Politis. Politis is annoying. I kind of don't like it when my enemies have that. It's tricky to play around. I think one option here is I can take Ran, because he'll potentially outspeed the Peyra. He will put up immunity buff, which can prevent Politis from stunning my team, which is honestly the most annoying part about her, is when she's on Abyssal Crown. you know, in stuns and just prevents your opener from happening. So if we take Ran, I think we can leave the Politis in. Another pick that could go along with that would be Summertime Assaria, and then we can plan on taking Jacko later on in the draft. Taking Summertime Assaria is also nice because it denies that to my opponent. They have Paris, so Summertime Assaria could synergize well with their team. Alright, so we take the Ran, and then I take the Summertime.
May I help you?
Something I've noticed about drafting Jacko is you really want to have a bridge. If she's speed tuned at 240, I've noticed that, you know, some people will draft her with a para, for example, but then they won't have anything in between, and you can just take like 270, 280 units and cut in between them and completely negate their advantage. The one thing about para is she doesn't like CR boost, right? So you kind of have to bring along units to provide that role. So they take Rimuru and Celine. So these are two grass units. The Rimuru is I honestly don't care about. We have a lot of fast stuff that's going to counter him. Celine's annoying because it kind of discourages me from pressing my buttons. So I'm going to probably have to ban the Celine. Hopefully they don't take anything last that becomes a must ban. If they do, then I can just kind of like manually attack into the Celine, and I think that's okay. You know, assuming I outspeed. So I take Jacko, and then I take Carrot. I think Carrot could actually be a really good combo with Jacko, because you can give her chains and then she can stun on top of all the burns. Could be really powerful. I just take my Bruiser Carrot here. I've ungeared my other Carrot, who was on like a 270 build, but I think that would be excellent in this situation, because you would cut in between the Para and the rest of his team. You would have chains, so you could potentially stun them. So that would be, I think, like the ideal Carrot build in this situation would be like the 260 or the 270 one. We're going to have to make do with the slower one. So either way, we have 3 fire units into his 2 grass units. So I'm kind of banking on Carrot being an anchor here. This is another thing to consider with the new Frenzy change. Rimuru, and I think this is kind of what the Frenzy change was directed at, is going to do less damage to Carrot because he's grass, she's fire. His damage is going to be reduced by that 30%. So I think Carrot already has that ability built into her anyways, but I think the 30% is more than she had, if I remember correctly. And her damage reduction, I think, only works when she's above 80% health or something. Okay, so oddly our Conqueror Lilius goes first, which I was not expecting, and we had immunity, so that's like very awkward. So we have to trigger Rimuru here, or trigger Celine, so I was like, alright, I guess we trigger Rimuru. Maybe Celine would have been the better thing to trigger, I guess. I would have put attack down on his team. Celine would have cleansed, but we have a bunch of fire units, so the odds of her doing anything are bad. I don't know, maybe that was a bad choice. Either way, I didn't think Rimuru could kill my Carrot, and I kind of wanted to see. You know, he would only have the 4 buffs, right? Because Pero would not have gone yet. Okay, so like I said, this is kind of a weird game because things are not working out as I intended, and it kind of looks bad because my entire team is defense broken, essentially. But we have a book from Carrot here, so we can stun this Politis, and the nice thing is that the enemy team is probably very squishy, so we just have, and Rimru's already used both of his abilities, right? So we just have to kill this Politis and this Celine, and if we do that, I think we're fine. So we can get a bomb on Politis there, and now we can skill 3. So this is going to stun Politis, so she'll be out of the running, and now we can just work on Celine. That almost killed Politis, but not quite. We can use Jacko here, and this is kind of the nice thing about Jacko, she can snipe these squishy units, right, even without debuffs. And because she gets the extra turn, she's gonna do a lot of work here. So we can take out the Celine there, and now we can go into Politis, who's already stunned. And this is important because this will guarantee the trigger on her skill 2. And this is a really nice aspect of her kit, and you'll see that here. When we go into the Politis, so that'll kill, and now it'll trigger her skill 2, which will go on a different unit if the first one dies, right, from your skill 1. So that's a lot of bonus damage there. Now we can skill 3 with Carrot, who has Chains of Chiron, but Rimuru has that attack buff protecting his immunity. So unfortunately, we don't get the Chains effect, but still get the win.